Okay. Hello, everyone. I think we are on the nearly day, aren't we? Nearly live, guys. Nearly live. So, move back here a sec. Getting set up a second for the usual rigmarole. By the way, if anyone's watching, feel free to like, subscribe. It'll help the visibility of the stream. I don't know what we need today. I think I want to try and learn a little bit of 3D modeling. I know I push down with the Lotus, but I keep getting distracted. The banter Lotus, that is. At some point I have to cut back to Rising Worlds to no, I need to just do a fair amount going there. Yeah, we are now live on Instagram too. And as for TikTok, who knows when we're going live on that? Whenever it wants to be honest. I hate it's a separate application. So let's just say yes, then back to here. Yeah, TikTok's really struggling as an app. Not having a good time. Just, I wonder if I can just up. Is that fix anything? No. Brilliant. Enhance, effects, filters. I don't even know. I don't even know. So let's get OBS and then back to Streamlabs. There we go. Fine. Finally worked. Okay, great. Let's just go live on TikTok for the hell of it. So. And hopefully the screenshot topic is me like art, I guess. I suppose 3D modeling's art. Is it art or is it fun? I don't know. Someone define that for me. Cool. Hopefully we got no audio popping going on. I've been having some issues with audio popping with my microphone setup this morning. And it's been quite annoying, I'll be honest. But you know, it is what it is. These are the risks of these things. Just gonna open up some doodles in there, so okay, so if we just jump into here. Hey there, Lewis, UK. I'm just starting up the stream a sec. So I've got go on TikTok, stupid thing. Only you now, okay, I'm just gonna have to overlay TikTok with the actual TikTok pop-up chat, that's fine. So we should have, yeah, we got YouTube, we got Instagram, we got, yeah, we both, cool. Alright, welcome, I think I'm just gonna go that I kick myself if we don't do this, and there's a problem, of course, because it takes nothing to check. Just gonna confirm if I go into yeah, so I'm gonna go into Twitch because Twitch is always a good one for confirming these things. So, we seem to be good, yeah? So we got music. Wonderful. Good, look at that. Look at that. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. We are live. Finally. I hate all that setup stuff. It takes so long. Of course, a lot of it I can't until the streams are running, which is just a show, very liberally worded. So, yeah, anyway, here we are, guys. Just take that out a sec. So yeah, good weekend. We're now into Monday. Today, my plans. Oh, I'm disappearing to the side. What? Fuck, man. I need a bigger desk or something. Every time I put a phone on the desk, I move the mouse. Or I put a controller down, the controller falls on the floor. I'm not doing much space, so I've got about enough room for a laptop, and then that's pretty much a tablet on a stand. That's it. A little shelf in here as well, which is quite nice. But hello all. We're in Horizon Worlds. Hopefully. Yeah, do you know what? Let's hi Chaz, how you doing, mate? see Chaz just joined on TikTok. Welcome to the team. We are streaming to every major streaming network out there. Don't usually go on TikTok, so. But well, here we are. I'm on TikTok this morning, but please feel free if you're on TikTok to follow me on any of the social media network. TikTok's always a faff. Always a faff to set up because it needs its own software. Whereas I do run Kick, Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram as well. I think probably, yeah, I do Twitter as well. We are streaming to Twitter right now. But hello, one and all. I'm going to put a message up on the Twitter thing, on the TikTok thing. Sorry. So let's do that. So if we go into scenes and just add in some text. No, not add scene. Don't do add scene. Sorry, my bad. Oh, yeah. Okay. So we need to add a source. That's what we text. Do add there. Hello, how is everyone? Anyway, how is everyone? Should I say we stream to TikTok? No, I stream better. Stream more frequently to Twitch, YouTube. Please. Oh, okay. Twitch, YouTube, and Kick, and these are services that actually provide really good interaction options. You did see, I'm quite new to Streamlabs. I've only been using it a couple of days right now. While I like streamlabs.com/ happen if I do this. Goodbye. Oh no. So much tipping data. That's fun. Oh, can I? Oh. It's very cute. I log into this. Wow. Oh. Okay, should be logged in. Cool. Oh. Run that. Can I do that? That's fun. Wow. Oh. Neat that. Great. Where was I? We seen hey Lamina, how you doing? So where's that TikTok studio gone then? There we are. I stream more frequently to Twitch, YouTube. Now please follow me. What's it? Follow the on YouTube. More frequent streams and better user engagement. So this is against the terms of service, but whatever. So these are not good fonts. So yeah. I can't choose my own fonts. What? That's mental. I'll choose my own damn font. Okay. Terrible. You can play rich text or lesson. Oh, we've got the text in. Gone up there, so who's around, guys? Who's around? My message is clear in the middle of that TikTok thing. Because ideally, I mean, I know people have very kindly tipped me on TikTok, and I think that's so wonderful, but I'm not really after these tips, to be honest. Never was. I'm doing this for fun. Anywho. So, yeah, I think if I just wiggle off over here a sec. Let's start. It takes me so long to get a stream going. I think I might start doing live stream versions of these. So, we're gonna open this up now. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to kill the TikTok chat because this is hover and placing window over everything. It's not the best. It's really not the best. So for just moving just a little. Cool. So now I need to get the hang of it, guys. I forget what it's called now. Is it plasticity? Yeah, plasticity. So I'm very keen to, yeah. Offering GX, huh? Okay, so if we just go, okay, let's get Nikki. Can you do that? Slow in it? Crazy. Help Jax is supposed to be a quick browser. And no, sorry guys, I am checking the chat occasionally, but oh, a big old cost coming. Oops. Yeah, it cost no. So one not going down or something. That'd be bad. So, okay, it's 11:39. I'm kinda hungry.
In fact, all that computers do is manipulate and pass data. There are many data types available for.
So that's it. So, what I'm gonna do.
The mirror.
It's way back, okay, and I need to actually listen to this. Sorry, guys. So, the new window I need to set up. I'm so sorry. I should have come in prepared from this one. There you go. I didn't. Oh. Lyrics. What? Why is that pretend Pim not live? That is nuts. Yeah. Have I been shut down or something? I don't get it. Oh, let's check. So TikTok is saying I'm live. Hello, everyone. Twitch is, I don't know what it's doing, to be honest. It is live. Why is it telling me it's offline? It's so random. Okay, fine. So here you go. Right, settle the brain. Oh, shit, I'll do that with you too, huh? Right. I'm back to it. Yeah, I think that's pull me back, right? I think then to back here. Oh, okay. And
Hey everyone, this is Matt with Learn Everything About Design, and in this video we're going to be updating some of our plasticity content. Last year we released some plasticity quick start videos talking about the UI, basic modeling, and how to get working in plasticity. Well, in the last year a couple of versions have been released. We're on version 1.4 now, and there are a couple of things that changed. Now, the overall work process and the workflow is the same, but some shortcut keys have changed. So it's a good time for us to just refresh that content. What we're going to be doing in this video, which will be kind of long, is we're going to go over the UI and basic shortcuts that you should be familiar with, and then we're going to get into some modeling practice. So if you don't know what plasticity is, definitely check out the website, go to the description of this video, download the 30-day trial, and play around with it. So it's going to be a CAD program, but it's CAD for artists, and it's really more of a direct modeler, even though it has a lot of the CAD tools that you come to expect, but it's not a parametric CAD program. What that means is we're not creating a sketch, driving dimensions, and then having those dimensions and sketches linked to the solid objects. It is essentially a non-history based direct modeler. But with that, we get a little bit of freedom. We don't have to worry so much about all those definitions. We're really free to explore the shapes. Now, if you happen to be purchasing it, there's an indie and a studio license, and there are some differences. You can read that here on the screen. But basically, you get a couple of different export and import options with the studio version, but you also get access to the beta program, which means you get to see new features before they're released, and you also get to give feedback on what features should be in the software and how they should work. Now, if you are planning on purchasing it, there is a discount code LEAD10. We are an affiliate, so that'll get you 10% off of a purchase of a studio or indie license, and it also does help out the channel. Now, there's also another link in the description, and this is a user-based unofficial documentation for plasticity, but this is a great list of shortcut keys. Now, these do change from time to time, but most of the things that change are actually contextual shortcuts, which means what happens when you're in the middle of creating a rectangle or a line or something like that. So if you're looking for this reference, go ahead and check out the link in the description. I have no affiliation with this site, but again, it is an unofficial user-created site that does have a lot of great information on it. So back in plasticity, if you've never used it before, we're going to take a quick tour of the user interface. We're not going to cover everything in depth because really I want to get you started in modeling. So first things first, go into your user preferences. Make sure that your navigation preset is set to something that you're familiar with. I'm going to be using plasticity default. I really like the way that this was set up because the middle mouse is orbit and zoom, and then the right mouse will let you pan, but the right mouse button is also accept when we're creating something. So it's really comfortable, it's really intuitive, and I like to leave it at that. For grids and units, I think that the default settings come in at meters, but I have mine set at millimeters with the grid size set to 100. I don't use grid snapping, so really I just try to minimize the impact of this. You can set it to be whatever you want. You can have accent lines, let's say every 500, grid size is 1,000. But again, Play with it. Whatever you want to do there is perfectly fine. It will not have any effect on what we do in this video. And the last setting here is in the general section. Just make sure that checkbox is on. This will allow us to automatically start commands like offset, extrude, and fillet. And for example, if I select this top face, I can begin pulling it out. I can add to it, and I can just make the object bigger. If I select an edge, I can add a chamfer or a fillet pretty easily. I can hold down Control and add additional edges. So it's a great and quick way for us to model. With that said, let's take a quick look at the UI. I'm not going to drive real deep down into everything, but I do want to point out a couple of things and make sure that we are comfortable and understand some shortcuts. So first things first, in the middle of the window is our object, obviously, solid surface, whatever we're working on. Make sure that you are comfortable with rotating it around, panning, and zooming. That's going to be key. To change our view, we can click on the X, Y, or Z in the upper right-hand corner. These are going to go to some default views. We can also do that with a numpad, which is 1 for front view, Control and 1 for back view, 3 for right, Control and 3 for left, and 7 for top, and Control and 7 for bottom. Now, obviously, if you're working on a Mac, you can replace Control with Command, you can replace Alt with Option, and those should be the same for you. With that, now it's important that we understand where we can change our selection filters. Now in plasticity, that's in the upper left-hand corner. And by default, if all of them are turned on, if you want to select an edge to add a fillet, for example, we need to select the object and then select the edge. And it's much quicker for us to change our selection filters to only look at edges, and then we can do that without having to select the body first. Now, in addition to that, the numbers across the top of your keyboard will let you pick what these are. And if you hold down the Shift key, you can add to that selection or remove from it. And you can also hit Tab or the number 5 on the keyboard to turn them all on. I think that this is incredibly important, making sure that we're comfortable with going to our different views and make sure that we're comfortable with changing our selection filters on the fly. The rest of the shortcut keys we have are great to know, but honestly, we can find them in other areas. Going back and forth between our selection filters, those are really going to make a big difference. The next thing that we do want to make sure we're comfortable with and understand is the nuanced difference between Shift and Control and Alt when we're modeling. So what I mean by that is if we turn on our edge selection and I just select a single edge and I start to add a fillet, that fillet or chamfer automatically follows the tangency. If we want to add to our selection, we need to hold down the Control key, and that will let us add additional edges to our selection. Now I'm going to hit Escape for a second here. If we want to manually select that entire edge, we need to hold down the Alt key. Now the reason this is important is because some tools like the pipe tool, for example, those are going to require us to have an edge selected before, rather than having it automatically follow tangency like fillets and chamfers do. So once again, Alt will let us select an entire tangent chain of edges. If we want to manually add to our selection, we need to do that holding down the Shift key. To remove from that selection, we hold down the Control key. But if we've already invoked a tool like the fillet or chamfer, then Control temporarily disables our preview and allows us to go in and add additional selections. Those couple of things are really going to make a difference when you start modeling, because you have to know what these Control, Shift, and Alt keys do, because that's going to make a big difference on how you go about selecting edges. A couple of other default things that you should be comfortable with is going to be the options that are in the bottom left-hand corner for Move, Rotate, and Scale. Now, if you're coming from Blender, these are the same shortcut keys, G, S, and R. But for example, if I select this body and I hit G, I can hit X to move in the X direction, or Y to move in Y, or Z to move in Z, or Shift X to move in plane. And we can also hit G a second time to move in screen space. In addition to that, we can use options like Freestyle, which lets us pick a starting point and an ending point. We can also use V to reset where our pivot is going to be. So for example, if we wanted to move out normal to that face, we can do that. And those options are going to be especially important when we start doing things like trying to rotate a face. And you can see here, plasticity is really good at updating our geometry. but we may want to, let's say, move the pivot point so that we're rotating the face about that side, and that's going to be important that we understand how to do that. And the second point of this is that anytime we have a tool active, the available shortcut keys will be displayed in the bottom right-hand corner. So make sure that you pay close attention to that, because that's going to help you understand which tools you have available. You don't have to remember everything. The other thing that we should note is the tools in the bottom right are contextual. Meaning if I select an entire object, or I select a face or an edge, these tools are going to change based on that selection. These are going to be some of the most common tools that you're going to use, and of course a lot of them have shortcut keys like offset, curve, lets us offset that face. Now this is much easier to do if you have a face selected and you hit O, because it's going to be based on the center of that face. So if we, for example, select the face and come down here, then we need to worry about where our cursor was at the time we made that selection. But O on the keyboard is certainly a whole lot easier. But that's just a quick way that we can begin modeling and making changes to our design.
What was that?
We should note is the tools in the bottom right are contextual. Meaning if I select an entire object, or I select a face or an edge, these tools are going to change based on that selection. These are going to be some of the most common tools that you're going to use, and of course a lot of them have shortcut keys like offset, curve, lets us offset that face. Now this is much easier to do if you have a face selected and you hit O, because it's going to be based on the set.
Oh, neat. Let's just pause that a sec, because I want to play with that. That's something I can see myself making a lot of use of. So if I press F for that and offset. The quite like this is like a very simplified version of Blender. It doesn't mess about. So offset face. So I grab this little handle. What happens? Now it's up. Grab this little handle. What's this? Whoa! That's not at all how he did it.
That face does offset that face. Now this is much easier to do if you have a face selected and you hit O, because it's going to be based on the center of that face. So if we, for example...
So you seem to come up and grab this from here. This offset. So it's in distance. So doesn't appear to do jack shit. I don't know, it's giving me a big red error message. What does that mean? Offset operation failed. That's really helpful. Let's show it. That's not really helpful. But Jesus, I'm not sure what's going on here. Like, I want to do what he did. I just like, yeah, maybe I've got to do more of this. Maybe I'll go surround it with borders. Maybe there's a bit that way. So, yeah. Sorry guys, I'm totally family, not way too much. So he's eating faces, I need bees and edges. And if I don't know if I find the edge and move that in. It's F pounds. Well, I do that. And select curve. Funny name. Well, that's not very curvy like, is it? It's too fetch. Curve. Oh, well, yeah, you're saying fillet. That's not fillet curved, isn't it? Too conical. Oh. Present for okay. I'm no need. Things like no. Oh my god, my head feels heavy. Oh, how are you guys anyway? Let's just chat the chat. I'm sorry, I'm doing my best with the full screen space I've got. I don't say everything. No. Cool. So we're gonna jump back to that. Let me bring.
Select the face and come down here. Then we need to worry about where our cursor was at the time we made that selection. But
so what did he do?
Because it's going to be based on a face selected and you hit O. Because it's going to be based on the center of that face.
Oh,
so if we, for example, select the face and come down here.
Let me just full screen this. So it says offset, okay. So it's just
Then we
used
need
offset,
to
that's all he's
worry about
done.
where our cursor
Right,
was
so
at the
if I
time we made that
undo that.
selection. But
that.
O on
Use
the
the
keyboard is certainly a whole lot easier. But that's just a quick way that we can begin modeling and making
Offset.
changes to
I want offset. I don't know.
With that
Is
said,
that
a couple of
interesting?
these other
Offset
tools
images?
down here are things like duplicate, the mirror, and the
It's
boolean.
not,
So
otherwise
boolean
it's-
will let us
I don't understand. He's selecting something called offset. Well, I don't have something called offset. He just have this thing. Hollow or solid and full. So again. Sorry, we get cool. Right, so what do you say? No, if we got him because I got bored. He's basically saying, yeah, do
sample
this,
select
and
the
that
face
option's
and
not
come down
there.
here. Then we need to
All of this kind of stuff. When the tutorial says, oh yeah, Mr. Doe, choose the blah blah option. You're like, there is no blah blah option. There's a whole lot of variants to it. That. Boom, that in a little. Okay, no, I don't review product, but it's called offset. For offset. Do I have offset? Are you offset curve? So off. You layer on yourself. No, that's still bullshit. That's not what I want it to be. But if I do this, yes. No, that's a ring for some reason. Okay. Bad. Look, left now. Not great, is it? Try rebuild face, sure. I don't really understand what's going on here. Let's show. Oh, decided. I'm coming inside. Oh, I should get some food, right? That'd be nice. Although, what's in the freezer? Right. I know this. Then I'll watch every time I stand up because cables at the moment are loving just getting stuck underneath things. They're like, oh yeah, what will I do today? I'm gonna get stuck under a table leg and potentially snap some hardware. Why? Time. Every time I pick up my headset, something is getting caught under something else. Ah, you get a little hook under the table or something, that'd be nice. Maybe that's actually not bad. Yeah, that's not bad here at all. I've got some double-sided sticky Velcro that I can probably turn into a cable hook. Right, okay, so I'm gonna sit here and eat some Delton and watch them
worry about where our cursor was at the time we made that selection. But O on the keyboard is certainly a whole lot easier. But that's just a quick way that we can begin modeling and making changes to our design. With that said, a couple of these other tools down here are things like duplicate, the mirror, and a boolean. So boolean will let us add solid bodies together or subtract them from each other. And duplicate has shortcut keys as well. We can do Shift D to duplicate. We also have another option, which is called Control D. So if we do that, we can select a position on one, and we can create a duplicate using that position and orientation. So let's say I can just stack another one up here. And then now we've got these duplicates, and we moved them around based on those pivot points. There is also another option, which is Alt D. Alt and D will allow us to essentially make a silhouette duplicate of that curve. So this is basically the outside shape. And then that curve is now sort of this profile, which we could use to extrude a new version, or we could sweep, or we could do something else with it. So there are a lot of tools inside of plasticity. A lot of them you can find in these menus. If you can't find them there, using the see all commands or hitting F on the keyboard is a great way to search for the available tools, and you can see what their shortcuts are. So alternative duplicate and duplicate are both here, Shift D and Alt D. Then again, I mentioned Control D is the duplicate with placement, which isn't actually called duplicate. So if we look up copy with placement, you can see here that we've got duplicate and an alternative duplicate, but the place command is Control D. But essentially what it's doing is it's taking whatever object we have selected, and then we can duplicate it by picking its position, and we can hit things like F to flip its orientation, and then we just essentially created a duplicate of it. So I know that's a lot because there is so many shortcut keys, but once you get into the modeling process and you start to figure out how you work, that all is going to start to make sense because there'll be a handful of shortcut keys that you come up with that are used over and over again. But I believe that the top priority are the numbers for your selection filter, the numbers for your view orientation, and just a handful of things like move, scale, and rotate. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead, start a new file, and let's begin modeling using curves. Now, most of the time, if you're creating something that is not based on these primitives, like a sphere or a cube or a cylinder, what you're going to be doing is creating curves as the basis for your design, whether it's an extrude or a revolve or a sweep or some other version like a loft. So we're going to start by selecting and hitting delete to delete our cube. And then what we want to do is we want to start with curves. Now there are some nuances here. If you are using the line tool and you just start creating a line, you can go across some of the default axes like X, Y, and Z, and you can snap to geometry. But that's not super helpful because in the end, we need to have a planar curve. We need to have a closed profile that we can extrude. So the way that we do this is we're going to start with the default view. Just hit 7 on the keyboard, which will go to our top view. I'm going to begin with a circle, and I'm going to snap to the origin and just draw a circle. Doesn't matter the size. Right-click to accept, and then I'm going to go to my corner rectangle. Once I start my corner rectangle, note in the bottom right-hand corner, the C key is center corner. So if I hit C on the keyboard, now what I've done is I've created a rectangle that's symmetric about the origin. I can hit tab to go to my dimensions. I'm going to do 8250, tab, and let's call this one 3600, and hit enter twice to accept it. So we've created 2 different curves. If I rotate this around, you can see that each of these curves are their own inside of our panel over here, but I can select each of them, I can select both of them, and I can begin creating a solid. Before we get to that, I'm going to go back to my top view with 7, and I want to make a couple of notes here because this is a basic shape. The rectangle is made up of 4 lines that are joined together in a single curve. What that means is that the corner points can be filleted and we can make adjustments to them. Now there's a couple ways that we can do this. If I just double click that corner, what this ends up doing is it increases the number of vertices. It essentially is going to turn this into a Bezier curve or a spline. If I double click this one, it does the same thing, and you can see that we've created this smooth transition. If I want to instead fillet this, I can select the point and I can hit B on the keyboard, B like boy. And then what we do is we can drag it inward for our fillet or outward for a chamfer. So these are 2 methods that allow us to create a basic shape like a rectangle and then quickly manipulate it. There are a couple of other things that we want to note. If I start a new line, so 2 straight line segments and right click, we have some options down here called subdivide curve, which takes our current curve and it divides it up. And what this means is that we can take this vertex, I can use G on the keyboard, and I can start to manipulate the shape. Now, if we repeat this process and I just do something very similar, and this time I rebuild the curve, you can see the rebuilt curve has a couple of other things going on for it. We've got a refit, which is a tolerance-based refit, and also a number of points. When we do this, it highlights the fact that the center of this is now smooth. So when we take a look at this curve, we can take this internal point and we can start to move it around. And this is a nice way that we can start to build pretty simplified versions of a design. And then we can use this refit option with a number of points and turn it into a nice smooth curve.
Okay.
So I like to use this method when I'm laying out a complex shape and I don't necessarily want to go in and create a control point spline and work my way like this. So basically what I do is I use the straight lines and I start to build out just essentially that control frame. I reposition the vertices and then I use the rebuild option with a number of points, and that helps me get a little bit closer and simplifying that process, because sometimes using straight lines is just a little bit easier. Either option is perfectly fine, but for the most part, you can play around with those and see that there are a lot of different ways that we can do this, from double clicking a corner point to adding a fillet with B on the keyboard to refitting or subdividing a curve. Now that we've got these two profiles, all we really need to do is select a profile and begin pulling it up in 3D. After we've done this, I don't need these curves anymore, so I can hide them or delete them. I'm going to delete them in this case just to keep everything nice and clean over here. After we're done with this, we're going to move into what's called direct modeling. So instead of adding additional curves, which we will still do, what we're going to do is manipulate the geometry directly. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the top face, and then we're going to rotate it. You can use R on the keyboard, and we want to reset our pivot point, which is V. So V, we'll put our pivot point back here, and then about the Z axis, we're just going to taper this down. So now we've taken our basic shape and we've added an angle to that top face. There are a couple ways that we can do this, but rotating it is arguably the simplest and quickest way. Now that we have this, I want to add some additional geometry here. So I'm going to select this face, and I want to create a plane from selection. Now you can do this with the spacebar, or you can click here. I'm going to use spacebar, and then I want to begin adding a line. So I'm going to come here, and notice that because we're not on the default plane, we're on a temporary construction plane that's based on the face, we don't have XY snaps. So there's a couple things that we can do. We can come back to this last line, hover over it, and tap the Shift key. Well, as soon as we do that, this is going to enable a couple of snaps. You can see now we've got a perpendicular snap. I'm going to snap here. This automatically defaults to parallel, but I want it to end at this point, so I'm going to tap Shift, and this gives me my extension and allows me to come back and create that close profile. I'm going to hit X to end that construction plane. Then I'm going to take this and begin pulling it down. I want to remove it from the solid body, so I need to use W, which is the difference. And then I need to select the body I want to remove it from, right click and say OK. I'm going to delete that curve because I don't need it. Now, if we decided that we actually want this to go all the way through, all we have to do is select the face and just pull it down through the body. And now it's moved all the way through. Next thing I want to do is add some fillets to these corners. So I'm going to change my selection filter to edge. I'm going to hold down Shift to add to my selection, and then begin dragging this inward to add our fillets. We'll right-click to accept, and then I'm going to select this upper edge and this one, and begin adding a chamfer. Now, you'll notice when I do this that these two chamfers overlap. Now, if I wanted to move the position of that opening, in a traditional CAD program, what we need to do is go back to our sketch, and we would need to modify dimensions. But we're going to be direct modeling, which means that we're just going to move it directly. So I'm going to change my selection up here to face. I'm going to grab this face and just begin pulling it. Now, notice the fillets go with it, but as soon as the fillets start to overlap, then we have a sharp point here. So if you want to move this to a position where the fillets create a true slot, then what we want to do is we want to use the move command. So again, G on the keyboard. As we begin moving this, notice the fillets still go with it. But now what we're going to do is use freestyle, which is F on the keyboard, and we'll simply move from this point to this point and right click and say OK. Now plasticity is really good about this type of thing. You can see that it healed those two fillets and now it's a single arc. So it cleaned up the geometry for us at the same time. I'm going to go back to my edge selection, which is 2 on our numbers, and I'm going to just grab these upper and lower edges and begin adding a chamfer. I'm going to right click, I'm going to grab this upper edge, shift select this lower edge, and I'm going to add a fillet around that.
This tool looks great, but I just can't.
Say OK. Now, the next thing I want to do is I decided I wanted to add some more geometry here. So back to my all selection, I'm going to hit
lovely
spacebar to
scene.
create a new construction plane. And I'm going to add a circle that's snapped about the y-axis. Right click. And I'm going to get off my construction plane and begin pulling this up. Now, before we did the removal of geometry, this time we're going to do a union or join them together. So we're going to hit Q on the keyboard, which is going to default to this target bodies. We'll select this, right click, and make sure that we have a single body. And then I'm going to delete that curve. If we don't have a single body, when we try to do something like fillet that edge, you'll notice that it rounds itself under instead of over. Now, a lot of times when we're modeling, adding a construction plane, then adding a curve is not the most efficient way. So there's a couple other ways that we can use these direct modeling tools. For example, we can select this top face, we can hit O for offset, begin offsetting that inward, right click to accept, and then pull this down through the model. You can see now we've created a hole all the way through, and then we can add things like chamfers to these upper edges as we need. Go ahead and pull that in, add a chamfer. Another thing that we can do is we can divide faces up with a couple of different tools. So first of which is we can cut or imprint a solid body with a curve. Now that's one way that we can do it. Simply go to something like a side view and we could draw a line and then we could use that imprint option. But there are a couple of other ways that are a little bit more efficient. One is called the isoparam. So if I select a face and I hit F and I start to type in isoparam, we can see that this is Control R. Now again, if you're coming from Blender, this Control R should be familiar to you. This allows us to divide faces up, and I'm going to hit Tab. I'm going to hold down Shift and start to roll the mouse wheel. And now I've added those divisions, which means I can quickly and easily pull this section out. So that's one way in which we can divide things up. Another way that we can do this is with the line tool or curve tools, there's a knife option. So if I hit K on the keyboard, what I can do is draw a line, right click, and what I've done is I've used it as a knife tool rather than creating a curve. I've simply split or divided that face up. We still have a single solid body, but now we've been able to divide that up. The next thing that I want to do is create a cut going through the side, and there are a couple of different ways that we can do this. Now, one way is for us to take the profile of the side face and project it and sort of project it to that center section, offset it, and then we can use it to create that cut. We could also do this directly by hitting O and creating an offset of that face, or we can start to create new curves. Now, one of the benefits here is that we can hit Shift and we can create a parallel relation. So for example, I can start to create a parallel here. I can come up vertically, and then I can tap here and I can create the extension or intersection of those. Right click to say OK. And then if I take this endpoint, I can say G, and I can move this using my freestyle method going from and to. Let's go ahead and do that again. G, let me zoom in so we can see it. F, we're going to start here and go there, right click, and now we've created our closed profile. So using those extensions by tapping Shift and getting those extensions or parallel or perpendicular relationships can be a quick way for you to create something like this rather than doing some sort of projection or offset from those faces. So now that we have this, what we're going to do is take this and extrude it all the way through, using W for difference and allowing it to cut through that body, and then deleting this curve. We're going to change to our edge selection, which is 2 on our numbers. We're going to hold down Shift, and we want to begin creating a fillet here. And once we have that fillet, we're going to hold down Control, which will allow us to add the additional edges. If you need to rotate, go ahead and do that. And then we'll right click to accept that. Now that we've got this, we'll go to the outside edge and we'll add a chamfer, rotate it around, hold down Control, add a chamfer there. And you can see that we've now added that extra little detail. It cuts through both of those openings. And we did it relatively quick and simple by sketching from the side view and then just using some extensions or snaps to allow us to create something that was both parallel to the side faces and vertical or perpendicular to our ground plane. So those tools that we used and the general process for modeling is going to be pretty common across the board. Now, obviously, there are a dozen or more common tools that are used for traditional modeling, and there's an entire list of tools that we didn't even get to cover. So when we're dealing with things like curves and splines, we cover that a lot in our concept car modeling series. So if you're looking for content on how to create complex surfaces, I do suggest that you check that video out. There are also plenty of other tools that we didn't get to in this video, things like using imprint or doing some additional duplication options. But for the most part, the common tools that we use in the common modeling approach of creating a basic shape, using some direct modeling tools to do things like rotate face, and then some of the other tools like isoparam or the knife tool and creating those additional details. That's going to be a pretty common way that you can use plasticity as a modeler. Now, if you have any questions on this or if anything didn't work quite right for you, please leave a comment and let me know. I do plan on doing more plasticity content, but I did want to re-release a sort of getting started video so that way people can get comfortable with the program before moving on to more complex models. So, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Hey everyone, this is Matt with Learn Everything About Design, and in this video we're going to be diving back into the Blender Bridge for plasticity. Now, in the last video we talked more about what it was and how to set it up and how to use it just in general. In this video we're going to dive deeper into some of the options for things like marking seams and UV unwrapping. So just a quick reminder,
okay, so anyone chatting?
So if you use the code LEAD10 at checkout, you'll get 10% off either the indie or the studio version, and it also does help out the channel. So if you are looking to purchase, make sure that you do use that code to get 10% off.
You might be
so if you haven't seen it already, make sure you check out the first video where we did talk about how to set it up and use it. And in this video, we're
I am
going to do a
watching
little bit more
YouTube.
deeper
I am
dive.
watching.
Now, if you do have the indie or studio version
I
and
am
you want to follow
watching.
along,
Okay.
get started
If
by
you're not getting a
having
response
a
from
view
the
in
frustrated, just
plasticity.
switch.
We're going to round the edges. We're going to hit O on the top face. And then we're going to pull that in just to make some basic geometry. Nothing really complex here. And then we're going to hop into Blender. Now, I'm using Blender 4.0. There is 4.1 out, but for right now, I'm going to stick with 4.0. Hit N on the keyboard, navigate to your plasticity tab, make sure it's connected, and then we're going to refresh. Now, a lot of times when you're doing UV unwrapping, you need to be mindful of the scale of your object. Because we are dealing with an object that came in from plasticity through the Blender Bridge at scale 1:1, we don't really have any worries about the distortion that you would see if you were to, say, scale something up in the object mode rather than in edit mode. So we don't have to worry about that step, but again, this is really not going to be a deep dive into UV unwrapping, but we're just looking at the options in the software. Now, you'll notice at first, a lot of the options are grayed out, and part of that is because we're not in edit mode. We have to hit tab to go into edit mode, and then we can begin to see some of these options. Now, they're going to make more sense if we're in the UV editing space, so we can see the unwrap on the left-hand side. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this over and zoom into my object and bring up my plasticity tab again. So when we're over here, when an object like this comes in from a CAD program like plasticity, this B-rep gets converted to tries, a bunch of triangles. This is not necessarily how you would model it in Blender. So we are going to talk about doing a refacet to an Edgon-based model, but we want to take a look at it in this try configuration first. Now, there are a couple of things that we should mention, and we're going to have to do some backtracking in this video, so just make sure that you're prepared. First, I want to make note of our selection manager and the numbers 1, 2, and 3 across the top of our keyboard. We're going to be jumping back and forth between face selection and edge selection, so make sure that you are at least comfortable doing that. And I want to start by showing you the first way, if you're going to do some manual stuff on your object, how you should approach it. So we're going to select a face. In this case, it's one of these triangles inside. And I'm going to use the select plasticity edges. Now, it might be hard to see, but if we zoom in, there's a slight orange highlight on that edge. Then I'm going to hit U for my UV mapping menu and mark seam. That's going to give me a nice red edge there. I'm going to repeat the process going around the top. Now, if you're not sure what's going to get selected, you can always use the select plasticity faces first. That'll give you a good idea of where it's going to make those selections. And then we can use select plasticity edges, U, and mark seam. We also do have the option to paint plasticity faces, which you're not going to see unless you go into your material preview or if you go into the rendered preview. Now, this is essentially what plasticity is going to be doing when you select a face and you say select edges or faces from the plasticity model. So for example, on this brown face here, if I say select edges, it's going to give me the edge around those two triangles. So while it does work in some instances, like on the bottom here, we can use that, hit U and mark seam. It's not going to work everywhere. I'm going to switch to my edge selection mode and I'm going to add a seam here. And I'm going to add a seam on the inside here. Then I'm going to select all, U again, and unwrap. So this is the first iteration of unwrapping this object, and this is a combination of using the select plasticity faces and edges, also painting it so you understand what's getting selected, and then using the U key for our UV menu and marking the seam. Now there are other ways that we can do this. There is an auto mark edges option, but I found that using the auto mark edges does a pretty good job in most cases. However, when you start to manually mark your seams, you run into problems because we now have all of these red edges and these sort of teal edges. So also I'm going to go into options and turn on live unwrap. And I'm going to open up my UV menu and I'm going to reset this. Then I'm going to hit U on the keyboard and unwrap it. And you can see that the result is pretty much the same. But if we do a reset and clear all the seams, and you can see that the result is pretty much the same. Because of all of the auto mark edges that happens in the plasticity transition, you can see that a lot of these inside faces end up getting broken up into smaller segments. We got a large rectangle, and then we've got all of these separate little the facets here for the fillet around the corner. So basically what we're getting is these faces here are going to be the inside faces and the fillets in those sections. So that's just something to keep in mind when we use some of these automatic tools. That's what's happening. Now let's take a look at one last option with this before we take a look at the beta version of the utility and a couple of the extra options that pop up. So if I want to refacet this, basically take it from this basic triangulated imported model, we can come in and select N-gon. May want to play around with your tolerance values. I'm going to take this all the way down and select refacet. Now this looks a bit more like what it would be if you were to model it in Blender. Now what I'm going to do here is go back to my face selection. Once again, I'm going to select that top face. And note that if I use select plasticity faces, it's still grabbing the entire top. I'm going to select the edges, hit U on the keyboard, and mark the seam. Now the main reason I want to do this is because again I want some manual control over what's happening to those edges. So I'm going to do the same thing here, mark these seams, go to my edge selection, and make sure that I mark at least a vertical seam on the inside and a vertical seam on the outside so we don't get a stretch. And I'm going to unwrap it. So this looks like a pretty good result. The entire outside shows that we've got the 4 large faces and then all of the separate faces for those fillets. The inside face
Maybe I need to
good, the bottom, the top, and then the inside again. Everything has been unwrapped pretty nicely. So now that we've seen how those basic features work, the next thing I'm going to do is go into my add-ins menu.
Oh, right now, does that?
And I'm going to search for plasticity. And I'm going to take a look at the beta version of this. Now, the beta version has a couple of extra features that have popped up. Note that we have auto mark edges, merge UV seams, the plasticity faces, edges, and the paint plasticity faces. So that's basically what we would see with the current public release. Now we've got a couple of extra tools, select similar geometry, join selected, and unjoin selected. Some of these tools are not directly related to UV unwrapping,
oh, look at that.
But
That's not a scale, that was a rotation. Come on, you can't pull the wall of like that.
Hardware, for example, on an object,
overlays,
you may want to select some geometry.
Oh, random.
Now, the big thing that I do want to mention
look at
here,
that
because
shiny
we're not looking
shit.
at this from a modeling approach to
That's
those
neat.
sort
Look
of
at
tools
that.
in the middle,
I got really shiny
is that
real
if we
fast.
select the object, there's this open selected inside UV editor. This essentially pops up a second window where we could drag this to another screen and we could take a look at this sort of in a live preview. So that's a really nice option that has popped up in the newest beta release of this add-in, the Blender Bridge add-in. And again, all these other things here are really taking a look at modeling tools, so like selecting similar
I have no idea what I'm doing.
But that's pretty much all I wanted to cover in this video.
Oh my
if you
God,
are using Blender
stupid.
Bridge,
I'm
and
stupid.
you
You're
have a lot
stupid.
more skill and knowledge about using unwrapping and shader and material editing and so on, you can probably do quite a bit by using this to help speed up that import coming from plasticity and bring those assets into Blender. If you have any questions on this, please let me know. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Sure.
Hey everyone, this is Matt. We learn everything about design.
Stop talking, is he?
We're going to dive a bit deeper into Xnerves.
Sure,
now, if you are on the Plasticity Indie license, unfortunately, you're not going to have access to the Xnerve tool. But if you are on a Studio license, or if you're interested in upgrading or purchasing, then these tools will be the Studio version of Plasticity. Remember, we are an affiliate channel, so use the code LEAD10 at checkout, and you'll get yourself 10% off. So first, it's best that we understand what's going on with this Xnerves tool. There's a lot of talk about it, and it's an add-in for a lot of other programs, but what's the point of it? Why would we use it? What's the use case for it? So hopefully this video will clear that up a little bit, and we're going to talk about why you need it and why you might use it. So first, the use case here. We've got this shape, and we need to fill in the end of it, and we want to use these as guides. We've got these two sort of arced blend curves here, and we've used the bridge curve tool. And then we've got this thing in the middle. And this is going to sort of guide the overall shape. Now, the only way that we can do this is with the Xnerves tool, and I'm going to talk about why here in just a second. So traditionally, what we would do is we would loft from one side to the other. So for example, if we loft from here to here, we can use these as guides, and we can have G1 continuity on the ends. However, with loft, any of the profiles need to be connected to the guides. So if we try this again, and let's say I loft from here to here to here, once again, G1
Watch this
continuity,
anymore.
we are not able
Start off with such great intentions.
guide rails because these do not intersect with that intermediate profile. So the only way that we could do this with a loft is if we redid that intermediate profile and we connected it to the midpoint of each of those curves. Now, the curve here is not exactly the same, but we can use it now as an intermediate loft, and we can use these as our guides, and we can get roughly the shape. But again, that's not the point here. We want to understand how this differs from using Xnerves. So another way we might try to do this is potentially with the patch tool. Now with the patch tool, we need to have a complete closed boundary. This means that we can't have any open edges. Everything has to be connected. We still have the option to use G1 continuity, which is tangency, but we cannot use this open profile in the middle. So that again,
I know that again. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Tools like the Xnerves tool give us a little bit of flexibility. Let's take a look at the Xnerves tool and see how it handles it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to select our boundary. Now, you can instantly see that even with those two selections, it's doing a pretty good job of trying to patch this in.
Oh, more than a
Now,
rectangle.
once
I
we
want
have
to
all of these, the Xnerves tool actually has a guide,
it doesn't
which
go that
it says
far.
to influence
Now, what I would
the
like
surface.
to do
Now, the
in
influence
this
here basically
say
means
this
that
seems quite light
it
on
doesn't
features.
have
Of
to
it.
touch it. It's only going to
I would
use
like
it as
to
an internal reference. And what I mean by
use
that
that.
is,
Well, I suppose it can do a
get away with
sphere.
not
Let's do a sphere
completely
actually.
touching the curve we selected. You'll notice that as
Oh,
we get
my, look
close
at
to
that.
the end, it's
Shiny
sort of
crap.
deviating away from that.
So now I need to do a
Because of that,
boolean.
it allows us to get away
difference?
with geometry that
Does that-
doesn't touch all of the guides. Now, what's
Sphere
more than
select
that,
target
let's go ahead and try
bodies.
this again.
Okay.
I'm going to use Xnerves.
Look at that.
But this
That's
time,
like a
I'm
sphere
going to
cut.
select just
This
this
is pretty
sort of
amazing
circular
sphere cut, I
open
think.
profile here. Now,
That's
for
so
the guides,
weird,
I can have
guys.
guides that do connect internally,
Oh.
and I can have ones that don't connect.
Some crazy
We can
crap.
decide whether or not we
And look
want
how shiny it
G1
is
or
as well.
G0 continuity, and we can build
The
this.
thing is, can I
allowing
actually...
it to
Oh no,
go
I did action
through
box
each
that
of
out.
these internal
Need to
guides
restore
that
that.
we
So
have
if I do this
influencing the
here...
surface. but they're
Oh my
not
God, look at that.
necessarily restricted to the point where, like a loft or a patch, it has to go through.
Oh, hey, that's
So it
cool.
gives us a little bit
So
more
if I press
flexibility
okay
in
now,
how precise we are. In
that's like a spear. It wasn't obvious that was a cutting
now, there
tool.
is sort of
It was
one
just
level
actually
to
pulling
it.
out a
It doesn't
spear.
hit escape.
But for that, I'm
Wanna
gonna
hide
sell
the
the
surface,
scoopy
and we're gonna
ball.
bring back a bunch of other curves. Now,
Set
the
the
X
tin
nerve
for that.
tool
Use
is
it
pretty
to get a
powerful.
thing.
Now, what I mean by that is
Let's do another
I can
one.
go through and I can use
Like
this
just here.
as the base.
That's for where. Oh my
And then when I
God!
start
Look
to
at
add
that.
these internal
It's
guides,
pretty sexy. We've just
hold
got
down
bubbles
shift
going on.
and start grabbing
Making
these
me
internal
hungry. I
rails,
want
and these are going to be driving
air
the shape
bubbles.
of my surface. Once again, using those as influential inputs.
Air bubbles and
Now,
good.
this is something
Right.
that you
Okay.
could not
So
do
we
with the
got
patch
material
tool.
in it.
You couldn't
What
do
Lou
with
was
the
saying
loft
to me is
tool.
that we
You could eventually get to the same shape,
And
but
if
it
oh
would
hey
take a bit
Shadowman,
more work.
thank you
need
very
to be
much.
more
I see
precise
you
with
will want
those
to
curve
it.
inputs.
Yeah, I'm sure
So
it
in my
will.
mind, the
Somehow
X-Nerves tool, while it
I had a
can
very
give us higher
frustrating day
quality
for the shouting and
surfaces,
everything, but
it's really
how is
more
this?
about
Does this work?
opening up some
Ah,
creative
these are like
freedom
cut
without
tools
having to be
suddenly.
as restricted on these
How am I
inputs.
doing this?
You can certainly get to
Am I
nearly
starting to
identical
believe like
results.
Neo in the
some cases
Matrix?
You might have exactly the same result
I'm
using
starting to believe.
patch or using the loft tool. However,
In a
the X-Nerves
polygon.
tool does give us that
That
extra
on the-
level of freedom.
Right, screw that downwards. Look.
We will continue to do content.
See that
with the
what's
X-Nerves
gonna
tool
happen
raised
when I do
to
this if I
other
extrude
surface
it?
tools
Now,
we have available in plasticity.
come on,
Hopefully this helps
come
clear up a
on.
little bit
Select the
more
damn
about
object,
how
the whole
this
thing.
differs
Now,
from things
select the
like
face
loft
then.
or
Do
patch.
something.
If
Do
you have any
anything
questions
other than
on
what
this,
you're
please
trying.
comment below.
Okay,
Thanks so much
if
for
we
watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
It doesn't drag? No, it does drag. Okay, great. What's that doing? So if I now, is it Boolean? Boolean and different. Select tool. Right, set the target body. So the target body is this.
Hey everyone, this is Matt with Learn Everything About
Target
Design,
body is
and
going
in
to be the
today's
box.
video, we're going
What
to
the
dive
fuck was
into
you, man?
Plasticity 2024.1. Now, this represents a new
Great,
release of
Shannon.
Plasticity,
Facial
and it's also an
hair.
anniversary. Plasticity has
Is
been
that-
out for a little bit over a year
And
now,
which-
and
oh,
it shows that there's a commitment to not only improve what's already there, but to add new features.
I
So,
guess
in this video,
is
we
the
cannot cover
target
everything
body,
that has
or maybe
changed,
it's the
but
random
look at the description
tool.
of the video.
Hey,
Put
Shadow,
a
how
bulleted
you
list to
doing?
show you the
Hey,
minor
I'm using a
updates,
tool I have no
things
idea how to
consider
use,
if
and I'm
you're
trying to
looking at
watch the
updating
tutorial,
your
but my
licensed
attention span is
plasticity.
not letting me.
So the one thing that I want to get
do,
across in this video
whenever.
is that there are
Thing.
a couple of
So I'm just
updates
fumbling.
that can
What is
fundamentally
that?
change your workflow in
Thanks.
plasticity. So I want to
So,
highlight
well,
those
if that's a
and then
box
have some
there,
honorable
then if I
mentions
draw this
at the
box
end.
from you,
Now
I
remember, we are a plasticity
Oh,
affiliate,
shit.
so if you're purchasing either the
Go out as
Studio
unstoppable.
license, you
It's
can
not
use
as
the
cool
code
as the
E10 at
Blinky
checkout,
Sex
or
and
get
Curvy
10%
thing.
off. So
Look
the
at how
first
shiny
tool,
that
which is not really new, is the
that's so
offset
amazing.
face
How do I
tool.
do more
This is
things
something that
right
we
now?
use all the time. For example, if you
add
select this
zero.
face, hit O on the
Oh,
keyboard,
set
we
material.
can offset the edges,
Oh.
and then we can pull this
Oh my
up
God.
in 3D.
Make it
There's
red.
nothing new about the offset face tool in that regard.
That's
However,
ultimate, look at that.
we now have the inclusion
And a
of what's
specular
going to
dot
be
as well.
called
We can make that like
dependency option.
various
Now, as
disgusting
we drag
colors.
this out,
Go
we
blue.
select another face.
That's a little light
This is going to
on
give
this.
us essentially the match face
Oh, no, it's
operation.
not. It's a-
That dependency will allow us to move around, make different selections, and for example, if I want to switch to the side, I can
Macroless.
offset this face inward or outward.
Ah,
The reason that's important is
the
because now we
macro
can
must
use
be
it
like
for things
size,
like cutaways that are offset from a
thickness,
specific
wide,
face,
depth.
or you can create
Right.
objects that have a
That's-
constant or a nice
Oh
consistent
shit, we got
fit.
transparency.
This is not
Oh,
only
that's-
limited to a single face on a solid body, but if I begin pulling this out in this direction, it's like this complex surface, you can see that it's able to even extend past the edge of the surface. And once again, we can pull this in and create those complex intersections or overlaps between different bodies. So this is a
Oh, wow,
wonderful
that's-
addition to the offset face tool.
I got
And
moody
again,
quick.
offset face has been there for
Look at all that
as
crap going
long
on
as
over there.
plasticity's
Amazing.
been around. But this is a nice improvement because now we don't have to go to the match face tool to do
Send
some of
that
these things.
sub on
There
way
is
to you
also an
promise.
update to the
Thank you.
extend sheet option for surfaces, which behaves in a very similar manner. So for example, if I select that solid body,
Time is
this is
anyway.
going to
I reckon
extend the
probably
sheet
1 o'clock
to that
I'll start
solid
getting
and
ready to
also
go to the
to
gym.
the sheet
I'm
at the same
just
time.
so tired.
once
I'm
again,
literally
it kind
fucking
of
sat
saves
down.
you a couple
I
of
stopped
additional
really late
steps
night,
that
guys.
you have
It's
to do.
ruining me.
We're
Absolutely
trying
ruining
to
me.
extend
Now
that
is my
sheet
chance.
up to
We
a
go for it.
specific
I can
phase,
catch
trim
up on
it
it.
away. Now you can do it very quickly and easily with just that one step. Let's go ahead and
Really
hide
fun,
these
like
and let's
chocolate
talk about the
pudding.
next and probably the most
Okay.
impressive addition for me to plasticity, and that's called raise degree.
I like
Now
these
before I get
crap.
into
So that's
raise
just one
degree, I'm
object.
going to
But
make
you
a
said
couple of
Control
fillets
V
on the
now
corner
does
of the
something
solid body
random.
simply
So
by making that selection. Also note that we can
Whoa,
use
look at that.
Control.
I just
If we select the
duplicated
body
it.
and we use Control and Alt,
I think it's like
we
a-
can select
oh.
all the vertical edges
Oh,
on
what
that
the
same
fudge is
face
going on there?
to make that selection process a little bit quicker.
I need to get out
So
of this
now we've
whatever
got
mode
this
I'm in.
sort of
Oh no!
simple shape.
That was
It's
okay.
just a box with some
Oh,
fillets
look at
in the
this, some
corner.
flattening
But
faces
let's say
and
that we
crap.
want to turn it into something
Wait,
more
extrude that
complex.
one. Oh,
Generally,
no.
what you do is start creating some 3D curves,
Oh,
make
wait,
some
what you
sheets
doing?
or surfaces, replace the
Oh,
face,
right, okay,
or
cool.
maybe
That's
break
it.
it apart
And
and patch it. And
Can I?
stitch it together.
Oh, no, I
Well,
want
now
to
what
the
we
grab
can
a
do is
face
we
like
can
you do in
select the
Unity.
planar face, and
What?
we can do
Why are
what's
we not
called
letting
raised
do that?
degree.
Oh,
As soon as we do raised degree,
Grab.
we're essentially turning this
You should
into
move
a
that.
sub D
No,
surface.
why
It's
does that not
truly
work?
a sub D
I
surface,
just go straight in.
but we're taking a planar surface and making it a spline surface with CVs.
Oh my damn head.
What this means is that we can take these CVs and we can begin manipulating them, creating a complex shape. It goes a bit further than that
Oh, yeah.
because we can continue to do this.
Grind the
Every time
floor.
we run the tool, it's going to allow us
Yeah.
to divide it up, giving us these extra CVs that we can then manipulate. So for example, I can now pull them up. Creating something like this before
Yeah.
by doing it
Thank
manually
you,
by
mate.
creating
Thank
surfaces or sheets and then
Oh,
trimming
I'm
away
quite
or
cold
cutting
today.
away a
I'm
solid
like sat
or
here in a
replacing
pair of
the face,
compression shorts and a
that can
tank
take
top,
quite a bit
and I
more
swear to
time.
God,
And
it's
now we have
really
the
cold
option to
70.
use these CVs and just manipulate them quickly.
So I have questionable
Now,
fashion
the
taste.
CVs themselves actually do a pretty good job of adjusting, even when we have things like fillets in the design. You'll notice that the CVs extend past the original face because they're using the untrimmed version of it. But let's go ahead and let's take these three
Crazy.
CVs on this side and select this one, and this one, and I'll use G
I
and
would
C and
normally
move
make
it up.
like a coffee right
Notice
now,
that the
but I
fillet
stopped
is
bringing
moving
coffee
with
back in.
it. It
February
gives it the
to solve
ability
that
to
bunch
adjust
of-
its chord width.
Oh shit.
You can see it's getting wider as we go up, it's getting narrower
Right,
as we
so
go down, and it is able to handle those changes. There will be a limit. For example, if you
I
divide
do
this
still
up
drink
too much,
caffeine
you may
and
have
formulate
trouble
occasional
actually
energy
updating those
drinks. Energy
surfaces.
drinks
But
not very
so far, I found that this is an extremely powerful tool. You can do it to additional faces like these fillets here, but it gets a bit crazy because
I
now
do tend to
what
go to
we're
the gym
doing
with an
is
energy, but that's
creating a
about it.
situation where we've just got way too much control, too many CVs on here. So for example,
look up.
if I scale this down, let's hit S and S and try to scale this,
Jump back
nothing's
over
happening.
to-
And you can see as soon as
Matter
it starts to
Brian said,
update, things
I
go
think
a
my
little
laptop's
crazy.
doing too many things at
But
once.
it is still trying to
Yeah, yeah.
produce something for
Look,
us.
he's cutting
But
my
this is just something that you have to be
my
careful with
little
something like
things.
this.
Mm.
My suggestion is to
Yeah.
avoid adding too many fillets or rounded corners. Play around with using the raised degree tool first, get the overall shape, and then go back and add those details. Because once you start adding too many details, you're really just taxing the tool. Now that we've added these using raised degree, how do we get rid of them? Well, they are going to be a part of the surface, but we can select the body or the individual faces. And we can go to the tool called Toggle Points. Now, Toggle Points allows us to turn them on and off. It's not removing them, but if we want to simply hide them while
chords
we're
from
doing additional model
Rock Your
operations,
Body by
we can do that with
Justin
Toggle Points.
Timberlake, if you
So I
didn't
think that
spot it,
that is
alright?
going to have probably the biggest
The-
or most drastic impact on workflow, especially if you're dealing with complex shapes and traditionally you go straight to creating those sheets with complex 3D curves. Now, the tool that probably most
Actually
people are
listen to this
interested in talking about
because
is
I'm
Xnerves.
not,
Now, I
and I
think
feel like
Xnerves is
he's probably imparting
extremely
some really good
powerful.
knowledge
I think
and
it's a
a
wonderful
brain
addition
can't
to
lock it.
plasticity.
Can't
And
lock
in
it
other
in.
CAD systems, typically when you have Xnerves,
People,
it's a
people,
several
people.
$100 add-in, and it's something that works in the
Nerves.
same way in other CAD programs as it does in plasticity. However, understanding
Oh,
what it actually is
nerves.
can be kind of tricky.
Xnerves.
We will do a dedicated video talking about Xnerves, but I want to
A
highlight
lot of
just a
people
couple
know
of
what
things
NIRB
here.
stands for, actually.
First, I'm going to start the
among one.
Xnerves tool. When we have the Xnerves tool active, it's asking us to select boundaries and guides. Now, for these examples, we're only going to focus on boundaries with no
popcorn.
internal guide rails. But let's
I'm making a bowl
highlight
of popcorn,
sort of the
guys.
differences
But
and
hell with, I'm
similarities
so
between
sorry.
something like the
I'll be
loft tool.
back in like
Now, if we were going to loft from
seconds.
this edge to this edge, we could have G1, G2,
Oh my God,
or
standing up.
G0 connected continuity.
Ooh.
Everything at this point is essentially the same between the Xnerves tool and the loft tool.
Shit.
Create the
I've
same
lifted my
thing.
t-shirt and flashed
You
the
can go
neighbors.
to a
That's not good.
quad-sided patch, which will actually give
Mm.
you quite a nice result when we're talking about using the Xnerves tool. But in most cases, it's going to give you a very similar, if not identical, result to the loft tool. Where things start to differ is when we begin to add more selections. If we say add this edge here, now Now, the
Don't really
Xnerds
want
tool
popcorn, I'm
can
not sure.
actually continue to build out a patch that fits those. The loft tool, however, would go from this first edge to the second edge and try to transition into this third edge. It gets worse if we try to add more, and it just keeps going. But the Xnerds tool is looking at these as boundaries and not specifically an order of operations from going through profiles. So what this allows us to do is build out these complex networks without having to create complete closed profiles like we would with the patch tool, or building out this complex network of loft profiles to go from start to end of our shape. We can manipulate it with G1, G2, or G0 continuity, and there are a whole host of additional options in here. My suggestion is to only use quad-sided when you're dealing with a true four-sided patch, and to leave all the rest of the settings as is until you have a little bit more seat time with this tool. Playing around with the quality, the boundary settings, and even the flatness can produce some undesirable results, and the default settings are pretty good. So if we right-click, that is a surface that you could not produce with any other tool that I'm aware of. So that's probably one of those use cases that you're going to see quite a bit, somebody creating this complex patch between all these other areas. So that is obviously one case where Xnerds has definitely got my vote for a useful tool plasticity. However, there are a couple of other use cases where it may not be so apparent. So what we're going to take a look at here is this common condition where we've got a shape that's transitioning and we need to fill it in with a surface. Now, what we would typically do is hold down the Alt key, select this boundary, and we go to our patch tool. Now the patch tool works pretty well. We can set it to G1 continuity for tangency, but generally when we have this many boundaries on an n-gon or multi-sided patch, it's not going to allow us to do G2 continuity, which is taking a look at the tangency and the radius of curvature at those edges. Because the surrounding edges are essentially extrudes,
No, it's okay.
and the side edges here have a little bit more curvature in 3D, it technically will complicate that
we're
process.
doing well.
And when we use the patch tool, what ends up
You
happening
need
is
to get
that
some
becomes
stick
part
on
of the
hooks or
original
something
body.
just to stop
So
my
I'm going to
cable
use
from getting
Alt-J,
stuck
and
on the
then
chair
just
legs and
move it out
tables.
of
Can
the
I
way
see
so
that
we
being an
can
action
look
at some point when I
Xnerds tool.
go to stand
So
up?
doing the same thing, holding
We're
down
going to stand
Alt,
up, it's
I'm
going
gonna
to
go
pull
to
and everything on the side of the
Xnerds tool.
headset's going to snap.
And again, G0,
No,
G1 continuity, and we can actually use G2 continuity here as well. I'm going to use G1 just to give it a fair comparison with the patch tool. Again, leaving all the other settings as default. Looking at this from the front, it doesn't appear that they're very different. But if we take a look at some of our options up here, such as our zebra stripes, one thing that you're going to notice is there are going to be slight variations here. I want to point out two things. One is going to be this transition here. On the patch, this is essentially straight and then it arcs down, while when we look at this on the Xnerds surface, it's more of a gradual arc. That might not seem like very much, but we have the same sort of story over here. We've got these sections, they're a little bit more straight, while on the Xnerds patch.
hi Aaron, I don't know what game means, I'm
Now,
afraid.
what does that really mean for you? Well, it does have an effect when we take a look at things like shadows and reflections. When we look at shadows and reflections, what you're going to find is on the patch tool, in some cases you're going to get a much more harsh transition when you have a complex patch like this that includes more than 4 sides. The Xnerds tool is definitely better suited to that, and again we use G1 continuity and we didn't use any of those advanced options. But that's probably not the best use case to say you should buy the studio version just because Xnerds is there. There are going to certainly be many overlapping situations where you could pick either the Loft tool or Xnerds or the Patch tool or Xnerds. So again, we will do a dedicated video talking more about the workflow, how to use Xnerds, and how it compares to things like Lofts and Patches in those situations. But those are going to be the main things that I wanted to highlight. However, I do want to talk about a couple of additional honorable mentions. Now, there are going to be some things that have updated that are pretty minor, but they do make somewhat of a big deal. Now, I'm going to talk about the first one here, and that's the pipe tool. So if we just select an edge and we hit P on the keyboard for the pipe tool, in the past, we had a complicated gizmo or widget on the screen to control the pipe tool. there was a widget for the diameter and one for the thickness. And oftentimes, if you grabbed one, you would end up grabbing the thickness version and not the diameter. So the update for the 2024.1 version has simplified that. So all we have is to affect the diameter of this, which makes it much easier. And it's the typical use case when using the pipe tool to say trim away an edge. So that is an update that I think is probably not going to make a huge difference, but it will help reduce some of that frustration
Okay, guys,
when you use that pipe.
let's have another go.
The next thing that I do want to mention is going to be some of the behaviors when creating curves. Now, this is probably one that's going to hang a lot of people up, because if you're following any tutorials, whether they're from this channel or any other channel, this functionality has changed. And essentially what's happening is now, whenever you're creating a curve, as soon as you left click, you're going to continue to add those curves. So for example, here with the line tool, but as soon as you right click, it's going to end and accept. Now, in the past, what would happen is you'd have to right click twice, but now it's only a single right click. Now, this is true for things like the circles,
let's grab one of these bad boys,
and it's also true for rectangles, for polygons, etc. So why does this matter? Well, in general, this is actually going to help your workflow be a little bit quicker. But if you do happen to use the dimension dialogues, for example, tab over to this one, and you hit the Enter key, it's going to end that operation. Which means that now you're going to have to use equals to go back to your dimension dialog.
Oh, that's interesting. So if you do that, so that kept an actual.
The good news is that dimension can now be used on things like circles. Wasn't available in the past, but it's not available on everything. You can't use it on lines or polygons. So just pay close attention if you are using these tools. You want to make sure that you tab over to those dimensions before you hit confirm or hit enter. There is one other thing that you can do. If you tab over and you enter a value, you can hold down shift and just cut another.
So again, we can make quite a fetching slow sort of design out of this.
Another thing that I want to mention is going to be the additional mat caps. Now, we've had mat caps in plasticity for quite a while, but now there are a couple of new ones. We've got draft analysis, which will show you where there's positive and negative draft. We
now going to just do a bit of a
change what that degree value is, to the best of my knowledge. But you can see at least if there's positive, negative, or zero draft. We do have some additional zebra stripe options. There are some new default mat caps.
We can try it.
So we can turn these on and we can take a little bit better look at our designs by using these mat cap options. Another thing that we can do is make our own custom mat caps, which is kind of a neat feature, but we're not going to be talking about that here. So keep in mind that all of these additions, some of them are considered minor updates, but other ones like the addition of X nerves or the addition of raised degree, those in my mind are a little bit more major updates in terms of functionality and tools. There's one last thing that I want to mention before we finish off this video, and that's the shortcuts. So whenever we're using shortcuts, in the past, when we tried to add a new shortcut, so for example, if we went to Bridge Edge, right-clicked, and assigned a shortcut, if we pressed a key on the keyboard and there was a conflicting shortcut, it wouldn't let you know. Now it's going to show up in red, so you can know that there's already a shortcut assigned to that. So then we can right-click and just
like a cylinder key, but nothing more.
So that's something that's nice.
Interesting
on that really wasn't there. You could accidentally apply
a so what it is, I'm going to draw another cube on top of here.
So those are some of the major minor updates
and then I'm just going to set that in place like
version. As I mentioned in the description of the video, I'll put a bigger list so you can kind of see all of those that are there. If you have any questions on anything you saw here, please leave a comment. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Up. And to here. Oh, well, no. Is that good? If I just turn that down, can I? Oh, I see. So if I do it on top, it adds an extra, like, oblong type shenanigans. But if I put it down, it provides, like, a really nice sort of, subtraction. Okay, I'm starting to get this crap now.
This video,
so look at that.
Modeling a T37 style rim. Now, I get a lot of comments, emails, questions about
pull this across to here and we go in here, for example,
so if you're trying to 3D print or trying to manufacture
if
parts,
I pull it down
that's
to that
obviously
snap with
a critical step in the process is to understand how we can do that.
And
we don't have a traditional sketching environment.
Now, how do we
history like we do in other
Wait, is there a...
But it still can be done in plasticity.
There's not, but that's okay. Is there an array tool? Oh, there is.
some of the
curved array,
shortcut
radial
keys
array,
you
and a
didn't
rectangular array.
understand,
Now we're
and so on.
cooking, guys. If you bring
Before we
this
get
out and
started,
wait,
it's
that
also important to
So,
remember that we
I
are a
still don't know what I'm
plasticity
doing really, but
affiliate. If
I
you are
suddenly
looking to
stopped me.
purchase an indie or studio license, use the code LEAD10 at checkout. That'll get you 10% off
what I
your
need is a
purchase, and
corner
it does
box,
help out the
which I
channel.
think is going to look like that.
This video is not for
Just make it look
absolute
like that.
beginners. So if
And
you've
then
never
we're going to
opened
press enter
plasticity
there,
before,
and then
then you
bring
probably
whole
are going
object,
to have
please.
trouble following
I need to
along.
pull out build
I will
notes
still
sometimes
call
because
out
say
all
hello
the
people.
shortcut keys
Oh
and
shit, with
everything
that
that
sand.
you're doing, but I'm not going to go over the UI,
So,
how to navigate.
Chill.
So if you're
Right.
struggling with getting started, make sure you
Is
check
that
out
okay?
our quick start guide.
Yeah.
That goes over the
Oh,
UI and
oh,
UX a
L,
little bit more,
Joel,
and
yes.
that would be a
Anyone?
good place to start
Zero.
before hopping into something like this.
Some of those just finding
So
the
the
right
first step
control,
for
shift
me
the
is
right
to start
key
a new design.
exhibit, the right
And
being
once we start a new
find
design, we're going to double check our
F and
units.
array.
So inside of our preferences,
Now, it's gonna be a
I'm going to
rectangular
use the
array,
inch
okay?
unit system because
I
most
probably
rims are
specify,
set
like,
up in
repeat how he
inches.
sounds.
And we're going to talk
That
about
doesn't
inch
really
and
enjoy
measure
those.
conversions
Okay,
in the
that's
dialog
crazy.
boxes for those
So if we
dimensions
just
as we go.
undo
So if
all
you
this.
want to use millimeters, you
Yeah,
certainly can.
I'm halfway to do
But just
bufferings
keep
and
in
bloody
mind that we're going
selects
to be
and
using
selects.
inches. The grid size honestly doesn't matter to me.
Right,
I
that's them.
don't
So
ever
what I know you
snap
should
to
do
grid.
is
You
to
can if you want to.
probably
For
create a
me,
new
it's
one
just,
of
I
these.
don't enjoy going that way. But
So
if you
here,
want to, you can always snap
and
to
then
grid,
up a
turn
little
it
bit.
on, and actually
So
change those.
We save that and then we just
increments of the grid
I'm sorry,
here
this is the way
as
my
well.
brain works, guys. I've
So to
always
get
been a terrible
started,
learner, but I suspect
if you
I've
don't
got
know
a
what
very severe case of ADHD and I think I've always had it. I think it got very
just
bad
do a quick
recently.
Google search.
And
There
I
are
think it's been caused
so
by
many
too much
variations
VR.
of this rim.
But at the same time, we're just going to scatter
and
them
there
the short
are
side of this.
going to be
Teeth probably
geometry
get.
differences depending on whether or not it's
I think of it like running without
depending
knowing how to use your
on
legs.
the backspacing or offset of the rim. So
I mean,
you're
we
going to
all
find
did it
all
once,
kinds
right?
of images. If you
So,
want to use an image inside of plasticity,
fuck, like?
you want to use the import append option, and you'll go into wherever you have
Well, I
an
think
image
it's a
saved.
rectangular,
here's
isn't it? So if I just do
37,
that,
and
so I
we
can
can
see.
that
Oh,
it
look at
brings
that!
out.
Look at
The problem here
This
is
keeps
we don't
coming
know
on
the
the
scale.
wall. Look at that
So
shit.
before I
That's
get
crazy.
started,
It's
I
actually following my
generally
mic
go to
pointer
my circle tool.
in ways that I wouldn't want
And
to.
from the origin, I'm going to hit tab to go over to
Oh,
my dimensions. and
that's
click
going to be the.
continue
Oh,
create
that's the
image.
useful. Right. So can I?
So now when we zoom
Can I
in,
do that?
we can
Can
see
I do
that
it?
the image
Can
is
I
quite
do
a
it?
bit smaller.
Yeah, I'm
so we're
kind
gonna
of
hit
not
S
ready
twice.
the way
So
I wanted to.
if we scale once, or if we hit
so
S once, we can
this
scale
up
in
here.
plane by using
Oh yeah, I
this
can use.
little box
Okay,
gizmo
fine.
here.
I'm just
But if you hit
belong
S
this over
again,
here.
then all you need to do is
Perfection.
move the cursor. So it's a
Actually,
little
what
bit
it
quicker,
is, so
especially if you're
things
used to
thank you.
Blender, than just hitting S twice.
And we're gonna
Also
go
note that
this way.
the bolt circle, this
And
image
we're
here
going
is
this way.
4
So now I
lug.
need
We're gonna
to
be doing a 5
turn the
lug.
array tool again,
Could be
and
whatever you want. You can
I've
hit 6
got to
lug,
stop
doesn't matter.
figuring out what
But
I
it's
want.
also
So,
a good idea to just do a quick reference check.
array.
So
It's
tab
the
on the keyboard to
rectangular
our
array.
dimensions
And back the
again.
curves and the radial
4.5
really nice.
inches for the
But that's
bolt
more about the
circle.
noses. So I really
Now,
want to get
that
this
is a
window the hell out of my way because it's
114.3
completely in the middle of
common
everything.
And we can see
Is
that we're a
that a thing
little
we
bit
can begin?
off. The image is
Like-
not perfectly centered. The
Oh,
bolt
yeah,
circle
that's
reference
pretty
is not
smart. So I can
perfectly
actually-
in the center of each of these
Actually-
lugs. But for what we're doing, it's
Do
close
that.
enough. Again,
Perfect, okay.
You don't need to have
So if
an
I just
image
have a
to do
look at
this,
that there,
but if you want to
that's
understand
kind of
how
done
to
the
use
job.
an image,
But
then
I
it's,
just,
this
oh,
is
look
kind of
at
stuff.
that! Hey,
The next thing I want
I'm
to do
starting to like
is
this tool.
put a
No, this is a good tool,
5.75
mate.
inch
This
circle
was a
here.
good freaking
That is
tool
going to be a
legend.
reference for where
So I can.
it
Oh,
dips in.
it's going
So
for the middle
most
point.
of the
I'd rather go left
TE37s are
edge
going to
to
have a sort of
And-
sunken in, rounded,
Ew.
recessed center section.
going.
And knowing where that transition
Right,
is
okay,
is
I
kind
think
of
that's
important because
okay.
it dictates how we're going to build the spokes.
So that's
You also
going to
note
make
that
me
a
some
lot of these
stairs, which is
spokes
nice.
are
Okay, they're not
tapered,
a
and that's something that we
stairs, but
can
they're in the
do.
right
We can
direction.
handle
like,
that taper if we want.
no, no.
For our example,
Let's
we're
just
going
check
to
who's
keep
in
it
the chat.
straight, but
So
the
where we are.
basic process of doing this is
Yeah,
the
what-
same. Another
No,
thing
what
is,
Kick?
if you
I'm
use
disappointed by
images, you
Kick.
can
I
hit
thought
M on
Kick
the
was gonna be
keyboard,
some revolutionary
materials,
platform.
and toggle on opacity, so you can kind of see through it. Once you have solid geometry, that's going to be a pretty nice feature.
It just seems it's
So we're going to hide
actually a
this.
very
The
functional
outside
streaming
diameter, I
platform
don't
again
really
with similar
need.
problems
It's only
to
there for scale,
frictions
so
that
I'm
you
going
just
to
can't
delete it.
fucking notice on it.
The
It's
inside
recommendation
diameter for
engine
the
is
bolt circle, I
clearly
don't
geared
need
to
because
do whatever I'm not
Take
doing.
care of that later. This one here, it's
Perfectly
good to
timed.
understand what the dimension is. And we can do do that by going to our Find tools. So hit F to
Anyway.
bring up the search
Oh,
dialog
it's
box.
12:35. We're
Put
coming up to 1.
Measure. It says
Guys,
Control
I'm
plus
going
Control for your
to
Windows machine.
kill the
And
stream.
we can see that we're measuring roughly, it says
Because I need to
5.6
get to the
here.
gym.
Obviously, we typed in
I tried to fall
5.75.
asleep.
When you use measure on a circle like this, it's kind of tricky because it'll go based on that center point. But it's a good sort of quick reference to just double check that we're in the right scale. And I
Really
don't need this
unfortunately.
circle.
No,
and
see,
we're just going
guys,
to get rid of it.
that was a good little session.
So all that work
Granted,
was
I
really
did
just
bollocks all
to
for
get
the majority of it,
image in,
the overall
to get it
majority
scaled,
of it,
and have some
but
rough
suddenly,
idea
like,
what these
realized
dimensions
something
are.
about it, and
For
it's
a
like,
part
this
the
is...
car rim, what we're going to be
This
doing
could be
is
a very,
drawing
very useful
profiles
tool.
that
The next thing you need to
So
do
this is
is
gonna
try and
happen
then
from a
bridge it
side
into
view, so
Blender.
3 on the
Also, I
notepad
would
will
like
take us
to
to
watch
a
a
right view.
video. Actually, I'm
And
going
then
to
I'm
see
gonna
if I
start
can
by
do it now.
creating a vertical line from
Let's
these
just
origins.
turn this nonsense
tab,
monkey off because
and
he's just
I'm gonna
talking and
enter
not interesting.
9. So this is a radius value
And
because
what I'm
we're
going to
dealing
do
with only
is
half of the rim
going here,
profile.
and I'm
We're
going to go
gonna
to,
up
is
9
it
inches, and that'll
banter?
give us our
Something like that,
essentially
not
18
banter, banter
Then
TV. Banter TV, I think it's not that one. Banter via TV. There we go. So I need to go find my way to Banter. Hopefully you guys have seen this. I'm not sure if you are. Okay. So if I go to Banter VR TV, actually, cool. And today was the 25th. Now, what Barry was saying is there's something in Space Makers, which I really want to watch, and this is on my learning list for this week, guys. So, there's can't barely remember the name of it. There's a shader authoring package, which I bought because I was highly recommended by some people I very much respect from that crowd. And it was always, on my list to sort of learn it. And apparently, yes, these Space Makers, did go into the usage of it. So I need to really sit there and watch this. Now, the show is 56 minutes. So I'm probably not going to do that on stream. I may do that on stream. I don't know if bands are going to mind me rebroadcasting yet. It's presented by a user, and she's the incredible world builder. And I think that's she. Then as it's presented by these users, she's not. It's very nice in the middle there as well. I wish I'd gone to that. It's Monday as well. I need to see if they've got made some. I need to get more involved with the band security. I've been pretty slack. I think given that people are moving around a lot more now and jumping between places. It's great that people are doing that, but I think, to be honest, Paris had a strong start. It's starting to dwindle. I'll be honest about that. It really is. So there's a diminished need for me to actually be in Paris right now. Now is the time I can go off and learn a lot more things. So it means that you might not see so much of me. The impact wants me to say down. I'll take that as a clear indicator. That I can get on with other things. Hopefully strike back in sort of the late September there with a whole caboodle of if it tracks just either one thing. More sort of a challenge for myself just to sit. I'm getting on in the years, see if I can pick a bunch of stuff. So yeah, this is the Space Makers talk. So apparently, Barry was saying that they went off to look at the Banter's own avatar rigs yesterday in here. So I would really like to see that. I kind of. Oh shit! Is this it? Oh shit! This is it. Oh my god! Right, hang on. Where did this start? Where did it go for this? Wait, the guy. There is a world. There is a world. You drop the portal for it, and there is a world. Wish you would call. Oh shit! Oh no! Oh, you son of a gun! Can't actually zoom into it. Or can I? Oh no! Back a frame. You think that today the new Banter avatars, guys? This wasn't stated. This video, Space Makers World Building Dev Meetups in VR, August 25th, 2024. And look at that. That's going to be one of the most important things that happened in VR recently. IGV, it's up there. Really want to see. Okay, so what have we got? Loading. It's not telling us where it is.
On the far right might not be.
Right, here we go, guys. This is it. This is X. So, see, everyone's in the ready play. Me avatars currently walking around, but what are these?
This one might have a
Oh my god, so, right, assign avatars. Shit, so we can actually click on things, yeah, assign the avatars, the people. Ah, look at that. Okay, they're looking a lot better because I think that they're custom avatars. I have a big problem with the way they make avatars. Who their heads are just too small. I really think their heads are too small. Way too small. It just looks odd. Like they haven't been head shrunk. Also, I have my grudge in Ready Play Me, and it's honourable what Ready Play Me tries to achieve. That for me, here's the kicker. I go across to get the reference avatar from the official documentation. I download the reference avatar. It's all pre-scout thighs, comes with a nice mesh. Thank you very much. I think as a test, I'm going to upload that and upload that hero avatar reference copy from the official supplier to Ready Play Me. But as I upload it, it says, "No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you failed on about 15 different validation things. Must use a transparent mesh material, whatever the fuck, I don't even care." But it doesn't matter what those messages are. The fact that I've got a reference avatar, you download it from the official site and then gone to upload it, it doesn't work. That's a pain in the ass. What the hell? Give you some other works to start off with. Like, don't maybe download something and then you throw out 15 stadias of actually providing the right reference object. That's pissable, in my opinion. That's pissable. I'm sure if I was a really competent 3D designer, I'd be like, "Oh, no problem, I'll sort that out." But I'm not. That's about most people aren't. But anyway, that's where you came in. So, yeah, they're moving away from Ready Play Me. Towards other avatars, and I really would like to get on board with this as soon as possible. I'm actually going to jump in there now if I can. Can I jump in there now? Let's open up a banter. I'm going to overload this freaking machine now. It's got too much going on. Let's close this plasticity figure sec. And in fact, you know what? And I want to kill off the TikTok stream because I think that's wasting a lot of resource. So let me just if I computer load detect, yeah, it's probably you, mate. That's it. Streamlabs is notorious as well for doing that, but and done. Okay, thank you everyone who appeared on TikTok. I'll banter by the way. I'm just gonna quickly follow. You've got Pickle Climb VR. What the hell? It's a name. Wow, what's Pickle Giant? No one said anything. Right, so okay, bye texture. Let's just pour some performance. I see. Great. Okay, now this is excuse the massive toy brute over there. Actually, Shadow Man, you weren't able to get into the Olympus before. Oh goddammit. So this is what New Olympus looks like. I haven't really touched it in a good number of months, and it's just a big spoon and bunch of chairs. I will come back to it. I think a bit off all I can show, to be honest. But yeah, okay, bam. So now I need to just have a look through the menu and see if I can find my way into the new avatar place, because there's no searching button yet, unfortunately. Tower, this is go be it. Maybe. Someone else. My collection. Is this one of pets? So, this must be the avatar railers in the glass. Yeah, okay. Don't look at me. I think that's a shader doing that. I've seen it. I really need to spend more time on band state. What I might do is I might offline it. I think probably what I'm trying to learn stuff. Also presenting. I'm thinking about something I had no idea about. If I just take that video a sec, chuck it back. Is he going to give me a clue as to where it is?
It pops up with it. It pops some issues right now. I'll see it. Shall we all try?
Met the frog.
You want to come with us?
Right. That's what Barry was saying. It's called Avatar Gallery. Right, okay. Avatar Gallery. Now, can I find that? We went into Avatar World. It's not that. Oh, the thumbnail of this shit. Oh. AI place. Ah, great bakery. Little trick room band to see you up again. Was it a private place? I don't know. Okay. Yeah, shit, you can't actually see that because I haven't showed the screen. Let me just jump into, gotta set this up anyway at some point if we're doing bounties, so I'm just, have to buy resource. They capture. I think going to be a new one can be called, oops. Up. Underscore counter. Source. And let's call it Banter. Today. Me the for automatic understand. Then that is now Banter. Wait, that's working fine, isn't it? So I just move that over here. Just move that over. Again, I've got to move this app into the correct which pop is in here. I'm just gonna remove the actually. Oh no, can we do that? Well, yes. Good hammer. Oh yeah, they're actually, I forgot they're actually. So this is Banter. Oh, you can't see it. Wait, you can. But this window needs to go. I'm gonna hide him. As this needs to go. We'll leave Banter open. Banter. That's New Olympus in Banter now. So I'm still setting up Streamlabs majorly so what you see and pushes like we get and do it though it's in flight. But if I find my way back to Banter, this is Banter. You can see another wiggle over there. That wiggle over here. Oh shit. Couldn't do that. Not stop getting these things from Bit Defender or whatever it's called. Like also like cushions and access your like but I generally know. So yeah, for you to run down here. There's no not a time in Grimhere. Do we have ourselves a little face there in the place? Maddest. But she's loving it. Bon. She's so That's just ridiculous. Okay, so we have in here just some screens and the hot turtle as you do. Now, the other like screen hot turtle. Come on. Okay, guys, it is 1:10. I'm gonna go, and I'll see you. See you later.